Hey there, and welcome to the Event Crushed podcast. Each week, we'll be chatting about all things wedding industry, entrepreneurship, and how to crush it in life and business. I'm so glad you're here. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to the Event Crushed podcast. This is your host, Becky, and if you are listening to this live, I hope you had a wonderful Christmas this week. We just had Christmas on Wednesday, and this is the first new episode that I've shared in a little while because we were traveling for a bit of December and went on a road trip, went down to Disneyland. So I did a couple of replay episodes, but now we are back and I have a new interview to share with you today. I had the pleasure of interviewing Andrea Shah, who is a copywriter for Wedding Pros, and we had a really great conversation about the role that copywriting plays in our websites and really how much of an impact websites have on our booking process and how client experience really begins with our websites. And so I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. Andrea is a wedding industry copywriter for creatives and educators who want the words on their websites to stick with their dream clients long after they've closed the lid of their laptop for the day. And I highly recommend checking out her website. I love her website. She also has a fantastic newsletter. And if you are someone who is interested or in need of copywriting services to up-level your website, I would definitely recommend reaching out to Andrea and seeing how she can help you. So with that, we're going to jump right into the episode, and I hope you have a wonderful New Year's. We are heading in to 2025, so the next episode that you hear, we will be in 2025, which is so crazy. I'm still wrapping my head around the fact that Christmas already happened, and it's just wild, but I have some fun episodes coming up. We also have a new podcast cover that you might have noticed. And we just launched a brand new website and branding for Event Crush, my planning and design business. So that's been really fun. So it has been a big month around here. And again, I hope you have a wonderful New Year's Eve, and we'll see you back here in 2025. Hey, Andrea, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for being with me here today.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. So before we jump in to websites and copywriting, I would love it if you could just share with my listeners a bit about yourself and your background and how you work with Wedding Pros and how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. So I have been working with websites since I was about 13 years old and taught myself HTML to put bad poetry on the internet, which I'm sorry, everyone. And it was kind of a natural outgrowth for me. I studied language in college. I ended up working for a company that did some translated websites for a while. And I just learned about like SEO and brand voice and got to learn from all these amazing Fortune 500 companies and major household brands, makeup brands I have here in my house and that sort of thing. And eventually, after I had my daughter, I was not cut out for the office anymore. And I decided to start working for myself. And I've gradually evolved to working on website copy for wedding pros who want a strong brand voice, but at the same time also know they need a good client experience. And because there's 3 different things you need to do, also want to get found in search. That's another thing that I'm always a huge believer in, is the power of SEO and getting found through Google. So that's how I ended up where I am. I'm kind of the rare person who works with wedding pros who doesn't have actual direct experience in the industry except for getting married myself. But here we are.
I love that you started with HTML when you were 13, because I have a very similar story. I found myself like making these websites when I was like middle school, like 12, 13. And the first website that I made was a Josh Hartnett fan page. Because I was a huge Josh Hartnett fan. And so I made a Josh Hartnett fan page.
Because that's what we did. Very millennial coded, to be honest. And I love it. Like, I absolutely love it. I think I was like doing Tori Amos fan pages and that sort of thing at the time. Yeah.
Oh, it's so fun to think back. Well, I love it because it brought you here today, and you are a very talented copywriter. I love your newsletter that you send out. I was just looking through, I got it on Halloween, but you had some really great tips in there. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, it's very practical and tangible. And I just think that's super fun. So, okay, we're going to talk about websites. And this is a topic that I have brought a couple people on to talk about this on the podcast so far, but I think it's such a important topic. And I think there's so many perspectives and different like aspects of it that we can focus on. And so, obviously, as a copywriter, you bring a unique perspective. And so, yeah, I'm just excited to hear your thoughts. One of the first things I wanted to discuss is, as wedding pros, we obviously, couples are finding us, hopefully many ways, but one of them would be Google. And our websites are kind of like the first thing that they see in relation to us. And I think that sometimes when we make our websites, we're not fully thinking of it from the client's perspective. And so like, when somebody lands on our website, a potential client or a couple, like what are they looking for? What questions are they asking that hopefully our website is answering for them, if that makes sense?
So they want to know, first and foremost, how you're going to make wedding planning easier for them. And I say wedding planning, whether or not you are a planner, you could be a photographer, but whatever piece of the process that you handle, how are you going to make it easier for them? How are you going to make their life easier? They also want to know a little bit about your style and your approach, especially if you're on the more artistic side, like you're a photographer or a videographer. And then they are also always thinking, how much does it cost? There's no getting around that question, but they want to have some sense of how much it costs to work with you. And then the last thing they really want is like a vibe check. Basically, are we going to click on a personal level? Now, that's not true of absolutely everyone. If you're listening to this and you run, I don't know, a linen rental company, your personality probably isn't as important as if you're a planner who's going to be one-on-one with them for hours in the wedding planning process. But people want to get a sense of like if they're going to enjoy themselves and if they can relax around you, because planners, photographers, even some other vendors like hair and makeup, you see some real personal stuff. You're like, witness to family dynamics, money discussions, that sort of thing. So not only do they want to feel like you're someone they enjoy being around, but they also want to feel like they can trust you.
Definitely. Those are super great points and things that I think maybe, we don't always think through all of those as we're creating our website. And I'm going through a rebrand right now. So I'm, thinking through all the different ways that couples are going to interact with my website. And so this is super helpful for me to make sure I'm like checking all of these boxes. And I think the last point that you said, like, can they relax around you, is super important, because especially if you are one of the people who's going to be with the couple throughout the process and on the wedding day. So the main ones being the planner or photographer, videographer. It's so important that the couple, can relax around you. I just was talking with somebody yesterday who her daughter got married this last summer, and she said that the photographer, unfortunately, was just stressing them out all day. Like, you could tell that she was worried about the timeline. And so she was like rushing things along and just stressing the bride and her mom out. And I was like, oh, that's so sad. Like, I hated hearing that. So obviously, as wedding professionals, we do not want to be adding to the stress that our couples already have. They already have a lot of stress. We want to be reducing that, not increasing it. And then pricing, I mean, if we could just touch on that for a second, I personally am of the belief that like we should all have something in regard to pricing on our websites, whether that is a starting price or a range. I know that a lot of wedding pros have custom pricing, so it's hard to just say like, this is what it is. If you charge a percentage, or if you just do like a custom offering for each couple, I totally understand it can be hard to do that. But I'm assuming you would agree that like we need to have something on our website so that couples can come onto our page and see, is this even like within the realm of possibility for me?
Correct. Absolutely. Now, listen, if you are, I don't know, Katie Mary, and you're listening to this and you don't have pricing on your website because you're Katie Mary, that's totally fine. She's booked out for years to come. She's doing fine. Mm-hmm. But if you are not charging the prices you want, not getting the number of leads you want, not converting people, that's where you really need to think about what you can do differently with your pricing to give them an average price, to give them an initial spend, to give them your, what I call your Linda Evangelista number, your I won't get out of bed for less than this. Like I'm just not doing anything if it doesn't cost this amount of money. Like I know one group that has a number like that often is hair and makeup artists, because if they're going to invest a portion of their day, it's not worth it for them to go somewhere, drive for an hour, spend a couple hours for $250 because they can't do anything else that day. And there's only so many days in a year. So for them, it might be that number that like, here is our bare minimum. But yes, I am extremely pro pricing on your website. If you haven't tried it, I always say it's an experiment. If you don't have it on there and you're finding that people are ghosting you, that you're not getting the inquiries you want, put it up and see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? You take it down in a month if it's not working out, but it's definitely worth trying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the idea of just experimenting with things. Like you said, just try it out. If it works, great. If you're like having a, decrease, I would say a decrease in inquiries isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like if you put pricing on your website and you have a decrease in inquiries, that's probably going to happen. However, from my personal experience anyway, the inquiries that you do receive are going to be a better fit because they've already seen your pricing and said, oh, okay, yeah, I can work with that. If they're not inquiring after that fact, it's probably because they saw your pricing and realized they wouldn't be able to make it work, which I know too, like, there's something to be said about even if they think they can't afford you, but then maybe you get them on a call and then you talk it through and then you're able to kind of make them realize that they can work with you. So I can see both sides, but I do think it is helpful having some number up there.
I think it helps you kind of control the narrative around your own pricing. I'm seeing so much these days, people sharing quotes they've gotten from vendors, just because even if someone's budget for wedding photography is $20,000, they can't stretch to afford someone who's 50. And they're still curious, hey, does this person I like charge 50 or 20 or 100 or whatever? Mm-hmm. And so they're sharing numbers and they're sharing quotes. But the problem is when they get a quote out of context, they don't know whether that was for a 3-day, 300-person wedding with 10 hours of coverage a day, or it was for a weekday elopement with 5 people. Mm-hmm. They don't get the context. It might be your quote from 2023 that's showing up. And then all of a sudden you have people who are coming in with pricing that's 2 or 3 years out of date. So when you give them something, it does not have to be everything. Nobody is expecting, especially from people like planners, florists, etc. Nobody is expecting that they can put in a couple of things and you'll spit out a detailed quote. Mm-hmm. But if you don't do any wedding where the floral budget is under $3,000, like people really want to know that.
Yeah, I think for florists, especially like just having that minimum up there. I mean, that's an easy, like you said, the amount that you wouldn't get out of bed for.
Yep. The amount that is just not worth it. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've come to think of it like that. And yeah, it really helps because everyone at the end of the day, you do have one. I think we all have the number that, yeah, it's just not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze at a certain point.
Exactly. So client experience is something that I think we think about a lot as wedding pros. And for me, like it's always kind of in the back of my mind is like, how is this experience that I've created for couples and potential clients and how can I improve it? How do like websites fit into that? Do you think that sometimes people don't even realize that their website is a part of their client experience? And how can we...
Yes.
How can we make our websites more consistent with our overall client experience?
So you want to show up online the way you'd show up in person. So there's not this big disconnect. I think Candace Coppola, for example, she and I talked about not catfishing people. If you curse a ton in person, don't have this website that makes you seem super stiff and formal and like you wouldn't say boo to a goose. You have to show your real personality. And there are people who will hire you for that no matter what it is. But you want to be consistent so there's not this, whoa, this isn't who I expected moment when they first meet you. And you also really want to think through just the whole experience. Is it easy for them to use your website? Is it easy for them to find the information they want? Is it easy for them to inquire with you? And when they hit that send button on their inquiry, do they know what's going to happen next? Because they're thinking a couple steps ahead. They're thinking about, okay, if I hire this person, what's going to be the experience of working with them? And especially the biggest part of that is, how are they going to communicate with me? And so the more you can kind of set them up for, okay, you submitted your inquiry, you'll hear back from me in 1 business day. In the meantime, here's something for you to look at. That's going to be a lot more reassuring than just, oh, my inquiry kind of went off into a black box and I don't know when I'll hear from you. So yeah, I think that that's really important. And the other thing I'd say is that if you are in any part of the business where details matter, there are some people who are looking at your website with a fine-tooth comb. They want to make sure that you're going to nail the details on their day. And if you're not nailing the details on your own site, then they're going to be wondering if you're going to get things right. And it can be things like spelling even. I hate to say it, because you can be the most brilliant person in the world and an excellent wedding creative, but not be good at spelling. But there are people who will look at a wedding planner and say, okay, if they didn't bother to spell check their site or have a friend look at their site, how do I know they're going to go over my guest list and make sure everyone is seated at the right place, or whatever detail is going to worry them on the day of?
Yeah, that is such a good point. I don't know that I've ever thought about it in those terms, but yeah, especially as like a planner or a designer, where like we are responsible for so many details of the wedding day. And if couples are going to invest into that, and then they're looking at your website, and like you said, there's a typo or like something that slipped through, they're going to notice that. And yeah, they're going to not take you as seriously, unfortunately. So that's a really good point that I think, gosh, I've seen so many typos on websites. I've told people, because as a wedding planner, I have looked at so many wedding pro websites.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sometimes for me, I am trying to track down somebody's contact info, because it isn't just out there in the world, or if it's a vendor I haven't worked with before and I'm needing to reach out to them. So I'm like perusing their website and then I can't find their email address. So then I'm having to fill out their contact form, which I personally feel ridiculous having to do that, but that's what it comes down to.
Oh yeah, definitely. Put your email on your website. Like, even if you have a form, you never know when someone will reach out to you for PR, when a planner will reach out to you if you're not a planner yourself. When someone reaches out to you to invite you on a podcast or whatever, you want to have an extra thing. That's a really good point. But yeah, this isn't just a hunch. I have seen people say that they looked at planners' websites, and planners especially, sorry, you kind of get it the worst on that front, but they've looked at planners' websites and said, you know what, like, this person isn't presenting the detail-oriented person that they're claiming to be. Whereas like photographers, florists, I think you get away with being like, sometimes they're willing to write it off as like, oh, they're artists, and you get a little bit more slack.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I think as planners, they probably are scrutinizing it a little bit more than they may be with some of the others. But as they should be. I think that's completely fair. And so, yeah, for anyone who's listening, any type of wedding pro, but it's probably worth going through your website, just reviewing it and double checking, hey, is everything spelled correctly? Do I need to fix anything? I think now for us in the Pacific Northwest, I know not everywhere is in this situation, but we're kind of coming out of a busy wedding season. And so now I think is a really great time to work on some of those things.
Yes, it is. It's also a great time to check that the pictures on your website, like if this is not your busy season, go ahead, give your pictures a review too. Just see, are you pulling from your latest and greatest work? Are you reflecting the kind of weddings you want to be booking in 2025 and 2026 and beyond? Oh my God, did I just say and beyond? Like thinking of 2027. That's wild. Right. But in January, I'll be hearing about people that got inquiries for 2027. So I guess it's not that wild. But yeah, make sure also use your downtime to just check in and update photos and that sort of thing, because it's really easy to just kind of be like, yes, I love my website, and let it sit when you could be refreshing, if nothing else, the imagery with more recent work.
Yes. Now is a great time for that. So a second ago, we were talking about how, maybe somebody else is on your website, like a planner, like me, who is on this photographer's website, and I just want to email them to either check availability because my client is interested in working with them, or My couple's already booked them, but they haven't gotten me their contact info yet. So I am like trying to track it down. And yeah, so I'm on their website trying to just find a simple email address, but I'm, being forced to fill out their form. Do you think that that is a common situation? Do you think that who else might be on a Wedding Pros website?
So definitely planners, 100%. I always write an individual vendor's website, unless they're a planner themselves, with the mindset that a planner might be looking, a venue might be looking, if they're looking to add people to their preferred vendor list. I always think that parents might be looking. I think of my own mom. I can give her an Instagram or a TikTok of someone, but at the end of the day, she wants their website. She might like do a quick scroll. She's not on Instagram, but she might like do a quick scroll while the phone's in my hand, but she wants their website. And parents and relatives can be really powerful decision makers with a lot of financial say, and they are probably looking at your website. And then the other category of person I'd say is PR and press. So if you are ever looking to get quoted in the national media, if you are looking to appear on podcasts, to do speaking engagements, whatever the case might be, those people will look at your website, and it's really beneficial for it to be as polished as you want it to be.
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of times we just assume it's just couples that are coming to our websites, but you're totally right. And I think it's really important to think about it from those other perspectives as well. And, how would that affect our copy, and how would that affect the design of things, and how we kind of have people move through the site? I think it's really good to keep that in mind too.
Yeah. And sometimes it may even affect your actual content. When I've worked with stationers before, some of them largely don't take on individual couples, or individual couples are a small percentage of who they work with, and most people come to them through a planner. Then we kind of write for both, or even create separate content for both, so that there might be a for planners page, so that a planner can say, okay, this is how we're going to work with you, and really target those people. And that's also really beneficial if you're looking to make the change to working on weddings where there are mostly planners, which I know is something that's a goal for a lot of vendors. It can be really beneficial to create that content that then planners say, okay, you've thought of me, you thought of what our working relationship is going to be like. You're giving me the information that I need.
I love the idea of having like a whole separate for planners page or section. I'm trying to think if I can't think of any local vendors in my area that does that, but that would like really set them apart. If I came across their page, and I saw that they had, that they were thinking about like, planners and how they're interacting with us and working with us. And, for, most of our couples, like we specialize in full service planning. And so we are the ones reaching out on our clients' behalf. Like, of course, my couples are welcome to communicate with their vendors, but the vast majority of the communication comes through us. And that's to make their lives easier. It's to make everyone's lives easier. So yeah, just knowing that other, wedding pros, would be thinking about that or considering that is, nice, nice thought.
I've even seen people set up either a toggle or a separate link on their contact page where they have one intake form for couples and another for planners. And I feel like that would be right up, because a lot of times too, the planner has details that the couple might not necessarily have. Like by the time you as a planner are reaching out to a florist or to a stationer, there's probably some details firmed up that might not be the case if a couple's reaching out. So yeah, I've seen that, and I think that works really, really well. At a bare minimum, you should have an email on your contact page. But if you want to go a step further, I think what I'm picking up, what you're putting down, is that it definitely would be like a way to make things easier for planners.
Absolutely. Yes. So as a copywriter, you are an expert in this. How big of a role would you say copy plays on a website? Obviously a huge role, but I mean, I think for some people, they think they can kind of get by with the beautiful images and maybe just like a easy, flow through the website, easy, like it's easy to navigate. It's beautiful, great images. And they might think they're all set with that. Do you think they could get by okay with that? Or do you think that it's possible that mediocre copy is like potentially turning away couples and potential clients?
I think if you're super talented and established, you can have whatever copy you want on your website. But if you are trying to build your business still, I don't want to say that mediocre copy will necessarily turn people away, but I will say that you might lose out on people that you could have otherwise captured with copy that is more specific to them and their needs. I never want to be like down on DIY copy because virtually everyone I work with starts out with DIY and builds incredibly successful businesses on it. And then at some point they come and they're like, okay, now I have these things I want to work on. But I do think that sometimes you give too much information, you give too little information, and you don't. I think one of the biggest tendencies is when we are not trained professionals and we're writing about ourselves, we talk about ourselves a little too much. We do too much of the I and not enough of the you. Mm-hmm. And we kind of lose sight also of our personality. And so you might be writing in I and talking about yourself, and I've experienced this myself. I worked in a corporate environment. It's really easy to feel like, oh no, I have to be professional. I can't infuse any of my personality into this. And that is not what today's couples want at all.
Yeah. I personally had to learn how to, because I think a lot of us for our about page on our websites, we think, oh, it's just like, it's about us. And we write, I like iced coffee and I have a puppy, and, like whatever you want to share about yourself. But in reality, yes, our couples do want to know about us and that they can relate, but really we need to be relating it back to them and not just having it be all about us. So that's something that I have definitely had to learn. And I recently hired a copywriter for the first time. Because like you said, I just DIY'd it for years and years, like 11 years. And it took me very far. But I just got to the point where I was like, I am not a writer, especially with the rebrand, like in the redesign of my brand and my website. I wanted the copy to match up with what I was putting out there. And I just didn't think that my DIY copy would just be to the same level. And so it just made sense.
Yeah. And you just have to, especially when you're doing a rebrand, you pour all this energy into figuring out who your ideal client is again, right? Because you're doing it all over again. Mm-hmm. You put all that time into figuring it out, and you want to make sure that your copy is refreshed to reflect that, because the ideal client you had 2 or 3 years ago, assuming you're charging more, maybe you're doing different services, whatever the case may be, isn't going to be the exact same person that you wrote your copy for, 2 or 3 years ago. I'm not here to tell anyone that they have to overhaul their copy once a year or anything like that. But chances are, if it's been 5 years, your business has evolved and your ideal client has evolved, and you want your copy and your overall brand to match that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So a bit ago, you shared some ideas that we can do in the off season. You mentioned kind of going through the images on our website and updating, like maybe, going through the galleries that we received from this past season's weddings and updating and making sure that it's reflecting the kind of clients that we're wanting to work with. And obviously, whatever updates we can do to the copy. We talked about kind of going through and spell checking our websites. Is there anything else that you would add to that or say that wedding pros could be doing during that off-season time?
Sure. I have a couple like low-hanging fruit type stuff that people can do. I'm not going to tell you to redo your whole services page or anything like that. But one of the first things I want to tell you to do is that if you blog, and you should blog, I don't do blogs myself, but I'm a big believer in them. Mm-hmm. If you blog, make sure that in the design, the blog page where your individual entries appear, you can have like a sidebar or something like that with a picture of you and a bio. Make sure that information is fresh and it's relevant and it has keywords, so that if someone clicks on your blog article from Google and they go, oh, wow, this person, you've written 10 interesting venues in the Boca Raton area. And they're like, okay, cool. This photographer knows their stuff. They want to know who you are. They want to know how they can follow you on Instagram, find you on TikTok, get to the rest of your website. And so make sure you have that information up to date. This is not a massive task. We're talking about like 3 or 4 sentences here, but it can really be beneficial, especially if you're already putting the time into blogging. So that's one of my big tips. Another one is if on your About page you have a couple fun facts, go and see if you can find something a little bit more quirky and a little bit more offbeat. If you're telling people, like you said, that you like iced coffee and you have a puppy, that is not to say that those aren't great things. Well, I don't drink coffee. I'm not a coffee person, so I'm not relating on the iced coffee front. But those are not, I use the word sticky a lot. You want something that's a little bit more memorable and a little bit more offbeat about yourself. And it doesn't have to be like weird. It just has to be not what everyone else is saying. Mm-hmm. So if everyone says their favorite cocktail is a margarita and yours is a brandy old fashioned, like tell them that, give one or two more unusual details about yourself, rather than the standard, like, I like tacos. We all love tacos. Tacos are wonderful. We all love them. But, that would be another thing. And one more piece of advice is get testimonials from your clients from this season. If you don't have that built into your process already, send some emails, get some reviews, and then update the testimonials on your website. Take those reviews and make sure those best quotes are on the website. A testimonial on your homepage, a testimonial on your contact page before someone inquires with you. Those can really make or break things, and you want to have fresh ones. It can be really beneficial. And I think it's something that we often forget to do. So if you have that built into your process, great, take them and use them. If you don't, take a day and email your past couples from this year and start gathering some.
Yes, I have a few different responses because I thought all of those were such fantastic, very practical tips that we could just all go do right now. The one about the blog sidebar, I haven't thought about that in forever. I know that I did update the photo like a year or so ago, but as far as the little blurb that's under it, I haven't updated that in forever. I don't even know what it says. So I'm going to go do that. And then also I know that I have social links in my footer of my website, but I don't think I have anything even in that little spot that would take them to my Instagram, which I could easily add a link to that there because they might not scroll all the way down to the bottom. Who knows? So having it a little more easily accessible seems like something I could totally do. So I wrote a note and I'm going to go do that after we're done recording. And then the fun facts. Yes. I feel like I see the same stuff over and over again. The tacos, the margaritas, coffee. Everybody loves coffee except not you, Andrea, which is okay.
Not me. I put it out there on my website. But what's funny is I put it out there on my website that I don't like coffee. And people ask me about it because it sticks with them. And that's what I mean by sticky. Yeah. It can be something really stupid. Like, who cares if I like coffee or not? It doesn't affect whether I'm the copywriter for you, but people remember it and they ask me about it. So yeah. Mm-hmm. And listen, I love margaritas and tacos as much as the next girl, but so do you. And so do 500 other people, with websites just like yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not great at the fun facts, but I need to dig in and find some. I'm sure there's something somewhere. But
I have a list of prompts. I'm going to turn it into a blog post. So I will get you the link for that. And we can, some of mine are just what's your McDonald's order? Or what is, if you go to an amusement park, what ride are you heading on first? That sort of thing. Or are you the person who goes to the amusement park and sits on the bench, which is totally cool too. The older I get, the more that's me. But, fun things like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. That's a great idea. Yeah, you should definitely turn that into a blog post.
Yes.
And then the last one was about testimonials, which I think is so important. In my whole rebrand, new website process, we took away, because I had a testimonials page, and then we kind of just nixed that and then just spread all the testimonials out. So now every single page has a testimonial. Which I think is great because a lot of people weren't clicking on that testimonials page anyway. And so just making sure that they're peppered in. And I've added them into my proposals as well because I kind of have a multi-page proposal situation. So I just stick a little testimonial down at the bottom there. I love testimonials because they're other people who are in the exact same position that our potential clients are in, and they're speaking such kind words about us. And it's why wouldn't we share that in as many places as possible? So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Testimonials are so amazingly powerful. And like I said, if you don't have it built into your process to get them, try to find a way to make it work for you. Because I can tell you that my clients who have had the most success over the years are the ones in part who have 100 reviews on Google and, just they're really good about following up with people. And then when it comes time to work on their website, they give me this amazing list of kind things people have said about them. And it's like, okay, I know exactly what your clients think of you. It's a joy to write using that.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I know it was helpful for my copywriter to have those to reference because she could kind of like read those to learn about me and like extract things from those, which I thought was really cool because we're so biased. We all see ourselves in like a more negative light. And so I think just having an outside person to just read them for what they are, and not us putting this like undertone of like, oh, but did they really mean that? Or,
100%. And they use like different language than we do sometimes. Like as industry professionals, you get hung up on thinking about things in a certain way or describing things in a certain way. And it can be beneficial, but at the same time, your clients are in the same places, right? Like your past clients and your future clients, they're in a Facebook group together. They're in the comments of your Instagram posts. They're on Reddit. They use the same language, and it's really beneficial to see that language reflected back for them.
Definitely. Oh, so good. So as we are wrapping up, Andrea, I would love it if you could just share a little bit more about like the services that you offer, just in case anyone listening is in a position of needing a copywriter. I would love if you could share a little bit about that and then where they can find you if they would like to reach out.
Absolutely. So I do 2 services. I do web copy audits. So if you're not looking to have someone rewrite your copy for you, if you feel like you've done it and it's 90% of the way there, but you want a professional to come in and look at the SEO and look at your brand voice and say, you know what, this headline would just be a little punchier if we cut out 2 words here and all that fun stuff. I offer audits. And that's just a really nice way to kind of refresh things, make sure it's in line with the brand you want to create without going the whole way, especially because copywriting can take time. So if you're in a hurry, that's one good solution. And then the other thing I do is just full service website copywriting. So I will sit with you and we'll work from scratch, writing your website, whether that's 3 pages or 10 pages, but figuring out what content you need on it, really building a strategy, doing the SEO research, and then writing copy that sounds, I like to say like the cocktail party version of you, like the best possible, most fun, polished version of you.
I love that. Well, those sound like fantastic services. I love that you have 2 options, because maybe not everybody is ready for the full service situation, but they know they need some level of help. And so having that audit sounds absolutely fantastic. So where can my listeners reach out to and connect with you online?
So you can find me on my website, which is andreashah.com, or on Instagram and Threads. On both, I'm Andrea Shah Copy.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Andrea. It was great chatting with you today. And I'm excited for everyone to get to hear this.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Event Crushed podcast. I hope you found value in this episode. And if you did, please consider sharing it with a wedding industry friend. We also hope you'll consider leaving a rating or review for the show to help other listeners find it. This podcast is edited and produced by Ace Sound Design. If you're looking to elevate your audio experience, their info can be found in the show description. As always, thank you for listening, and please connect with us on Instagram if you haven't already. Now get out there and crush it.